Hey, you guys, we are back with another edition of Dark Power, covering everything that happens on Tuesday nights. AEW Dark, Impact Wrestling, and most recently, the AEW Deadly Draw Women's Tournament. Now, that airs on Monday on YouTube, and this week's episode was pretty good, moved the tournament along. We kind of had highlighted some of the things that we talked about last week, whereas I wasn't 100% sure why they were doing this tournament now instead of waiting for when they would be at full strength. It just seemed kind of haphazardly planned. Like they wanted to shoehorn this in the summer and make sure that they got it done, but not really thinking it all the way through. They have talent on this show, they have talent on the roster, but doing this when they were at full strength probably would have been a little bit better, and we're going to see that in our matches tonight. So starting off in the Deadly Draw, we had Big Swole teaming up with Little Swole, who's actually Nicole Savoy, versus Leva Bates and Ray Chanel. And right off the bat, we can kind of already see there's a bit of a step down in talent on one side of the ring versus the other side of the ring. Now that kind of happened last week as well, but in this situation, Leva Bates hasn't had a match in months. I think her last match was on Dark. Why she's suddenly getting tapped for this tag team tournament? Well, it's because they're lacking people. I didn't talk about it, but it was talked about on last week's True Heel Heat about the issues or problems with the AEW women's division. So I won't go into all of those now, but we can kind of see there's some depth issues for sure. This match, the Swoles pick up the win, as we would expect. We're not really expecting Leva Bates and Ray Chanel to go that far in the tournament. Like we said, Bates hasn't had a match in months, and Chanel's losing on Dark. After this, we have kind of the most interesting twist, so to speak, we'll say, of the tournament. And that's with the full acknowledgement that we had a Funkadactyl last week. Here, we find out that Dasha is going to be one of the competitors in the tournament. And look, I'm happy for Dasha. It's great for her. She was just, as they said multiple times, she was just on the Rock's Titan games. But this is also, I don't know if she really should be in this tournament. At least not when this is supposed to be women's tag team wrestling and we're trying to push women forward in that sense. It's a great place for someone who's more established. She's just not that established, and it would have been better, I think, if they'd had somebody else. But to team with her, they bring in Rachel Ellering, and this is going to be the first appearance of Rachel Ellering, both on this show and on AEW for this week. So she teams up with Rachel Ellering, the former NXT talent, and who was part of, I think, the second Mae Young Classic, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, I think the second Mae Young Classic. And they're up against Ivelisse and Diamante. We can kind of already tell where this match is going. We kind of know who's picking up the win here. And of course, it's Ivelisse and Diamante. I think this was the better of the two matches. I feel like it went a little bit longer. They were kind of evenly paced time-wise, both to me. But in this one, it seemed as though the action kind of just never stopped. There was that slow, gradual incline of a match building towards the finish. Whereas in the first one, it kind of just didn't really get into the next gear, at least to me. So that's the Deadly Draw. Next week we're going to have the Nightmare Sisters versus the Swoles, and we're going to have Ivelisse Diamante versus Tay Conti and Anna Jay. If I'm making picks, I'm thinking Nightmare Sisters advance, and I'm thinking Ivelisse and Diamante advance, and the finals is Ivelisse and Diamante versus Nightmare Sisters. We'll see what happens. And I think that if I remember right, the finals will now be on Dynamite as opposed to on YouTube. So that'll be nice. Like I said last week, I think it would have been cooler if I don't know if I said this last week, but I was thinking about it, and I know I said it in in conversation with Sid and some of the other True Heels. Is I think it would have been better if this tournament had happened after All Out, in the month span between September 5th and the beginning of October, when AEW Dynamite would have its 1-year anniversary. And in the same way that last year on the first Dynamite we had Riho versus Nyla Rose to determine the first women's champion, I think it would have been cool if they had the finals of this tournament then. To kind of say, hey, last year on our debut episode we had a women's championship determined. This year we're showing you that we're building our roster and we're having a tag team tournament finals on this anniversary episode of Dynamite. I think that would have just been, would have bookended the year for women's wrestling in AEW a little bit more nicely. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have a women's match on that episode. Probably Hikaru Shida, maybe defending, or if Shida loses at All Out, maybe there's going to be something at that episode in October. We will see. But I just think it kind of would have been a better overall plan. But that is the Deadly Draw, and coming right after the Deadly Draw, that's Monday, coming right the next day on Tuesday, we start our normal shows with AEW Dark. So this week's Dark kind of had a mix of matches, some tag matches, just getting everything ready for the Tag Team Appreciation Night. I kind of liked that. And they started off with, it was kind of weird. Normally Dark starts off with a pretty poppin' match, like something just gets the crowd going. I mean, the audience, and this time it didn't really happen for me. It was Rey Fenix versus Lee Johnson. Rey Fenix picks up the win, but the match just felt kind of slow, kind of clunky. Like they didn't, not that they didn't shift into the next gear, but they didn't, it feels like they didn't talk about it in the locker room. I think it was kind of just, hey, we're just going to call this match, it's a dark match, whatever the case may be, let's just do this and get this over with. And that's fine, but if you're going to be the opener, or at least if they know you're going to be the opener, I don't know if they knew or not, if you know you're going to be the opener, then you got to have that, there's got to be some kind of pace, there's got to be some urgency, there's got to be some, let's get this crowd or the viewers at home going. I felt that the next match actually kind of did a better job at that, which was Shawn Spears versus Alex Chamberlain. Alex Chamberlain made the most of his time. It was a good match to me. I liked it. I'm also a Shawn Spears guy, so that's naturally going to happen. I just like the persona that Spears has in the ring and the kind of ability of him to blend being a powerhouse heel when it comes to people below him, but then a chicken shit heel kind of when it comes to people above him in quote-unquote power rankings, right? This match, they continued to reference the glove. The ref checked it. There was nothing in there. After he picks up the win over Chamberlain, then Tully Blanchard gives him the foreign object, the metal slug that he puts into his glove and just gets that palm strike, that nice hit on Chamberlain. I will say this was kind of cool. Chamberlain later went to Reddit, and on, I think it's R Squared Circle, I think it was, because I'm part of many wrestling subreddits. I want to say it was Squared Circle. He made a post just thanking AEW and kind of chronicling a little bit of his journey, saying he'd been doing this for 17 years and he finally gets to be on some form of television, so he wanted to thank AEW for that. I got to interact a little bit with him just to say I thought it was a great match, and seems like a pretty humble guy. I hope they bring him back for future matches. That'll be really nice. And he shows a lot of promise, so it would be cool to see them continue to use some of the dark talent that they have acquired, I don't know if acquired is really a word to use, but that they have brought on for the purposes of this pandemic and having people for the AEW talent to face off against. And I think he would be somebody who'd be good with that. We're seeing Lee Johnson, for example, going back to the previous match, we're seeing Lee Johnson being able to have more stuff to do on Dynamite. He is part of the MJF campaign trail, and he now comes to the ring wearing one of the campaign buttons, which I really need so I can piss off my girlfriend. But that's neither here nor there. But if I did piss her off, for sure I'd be getting hit with the guns. That was a horrible transition. But the next match after this was the Gun Club versus Mbadu making his AEW debut, and Sean Dean, another talent that AEW has been using a lot during this pandemic tapings of Dark. And this is a pretty good tag match. We're just kind of getting the Guns back into the swing of things. Austin's coming off of that injury that he had that sidelined him for so long. So just kind of moving things forward where they probably would have been by now with the Gun Club if that injury had not happened. So good solid tag team pickup win for them. After this we have Kip Sabian versus Stevens. I did not write down his first name. I think he also was making his AEW debut if I remember right. And we will see Penelope Ford later tonight. But this match kind of was pretty good. I think recently they announced that they have released Jimmy Havoc. I'm not sure what exactly the terms are of the release, but I think they'll be leaving the Sabian Havoc Death Squad arc, so to speak, in the past. I think it works for them because Sabian and Penelope Ford, they just play off so well with each other. I mean, they are a real life couple. They are engaged, so they have that natural chemistry in the ring. Not in the ring, but they have that chemistry with each other, and that shows in the ring when one is managing the other or one is acting as the valet for the other. And I think Kip Sabian didn't really need Jimmy Havoc. Their pairing originally didn't make sense to me outside of the fact that both were British. I think I talked about that when they first paired them together. I was willing to see how it went. I think it did go pretty well, but it did kind of run its course. And the accusations against Jimmy Havoc, I mean, that definitely didn't help. So Sabian, just with picking up another win, that's good to see him stacking wins. I think he could be somebody who could challenge for the TNT title down the road. That would be a pretty good match, I think. Him and Cody. Cody seems to get pretty good matches out of the younger talent, especially because he's able to be more of a grounded style and let them move more around the ring than he can or will at this stage. Not that he can't, it's just that because of size differences, because of veteran status, you are expecting the other person to be flying around the ring, and Sabian is somebody who can do that, right? That's one of the reasons why that Jungle Boy match, I liked the TNT title match with Jungle Boy. Speaking of younger talent, after this we have Private Party versus Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. Private Party pick up a win here. Not that much to write home about. It's another tag team match, just getting Private Party back in the mix. They're in the title hunt. They got to be in that title hunt. I am interested to see what's going to happen with them and Matt Hardy, because Hardy now seems to be super focused on Sammy Guevara now that Sammy's back. And see, that's the thing. I don't know if them putting Hardy with Private Party, a Hardy Party, was a temporary thing because Sammy was gone due to what happened, due to the comments he made about Sasha Banks coming to light. I don't know. So I can only guess that they are going to continue the stuff with Hardy and Private Party. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. If they don't, maybe Private Party got enough of a rub off of having Hardy associated with them. We'll see what happens there. After this, we have Jurassic Express, all three members, including Lil Marco, up against Aaron Solo, Pineapple Pete, and Hollis. And this is a match to help continue progression for Jurassic Express. The next night on Dynamite, they're going to be challenging for the AEW Tag Team Championships. So you want to get them another win, just stacking wins, reinforcing to the viewers that they deserve to be there. They're the number 5 contenders at the moment, but this is another match just to showcase, hey, they know what they're doing. They're here for a reason. They can win. They can beat Omega and Hangman. We'll see what happens on that episode of Dynamite. One thing I will say is that Jurassic Express always has great chemistry in the ring. The three of them, they are well versed with each other. And we're seeing that as we develop more and more talent with AEW, the pairings, as they last a little bit longer here and there. One pairing that works really well and has been developing, so to speak, is the Natural Nightmares. And they have a match with the Hybrid 2. This was a match that kind of threw me because I'm expecting the Hybrid 2 to win, and it was Natural Nightmares that picked up the win. And that just seemed off to me because you have the Hybrid 2 coming back off of being away due to the pandemic. It seemed as though they should be stacking wins, and it seemed as though having a win against Natural Nightmares would be good because Natural Nightmares are a established now team, and they are somebody who were high up in the rankings. Getting Hybrid 2 a win over them, I thought would have been pretty good, but I don't know. We'll see how they want to continue with the Hybrid 2 and how they're going to portray them and display them for us if Natural Nightmares, QT Marshall, who is in essence basically a jobber, and Dustin, who is more of a trainer, more of a coach, is picking up a win over Hybrid 2. Maybe they're just saying, hey, there's some ring rust, but Jack Evans had a singles match so the week before. So it just seemed kind of weird to have the Hybrid 2 get the loss, but hey, there's always a story to be told. You want to look for what the story is that's being told, and maybe the Hybrid 2 aren't coming back as strong as Private Party did, or as not Jurassic Express. Jurassic Express came back. So maybe that's the thing. I mean, they are a heel team versus the other two, which were face teams. So maybe that's also factoring into how they're going to bring the Hybrid 2 back. Let's see how it goes, man. I like the Hybrid 2 style. They are the last of the true hybrids, if you listen to them speak enough on BTE. So let's see how this continues to build. We talked earlier of Penelope Ford, and even earlier Rachel Ellering, and now we see them face off against each other. This is Rachel Ellering's AEW Dark debut. She does not pick up the win. Penelope Ford picks up the win. Pretty good match. It's just it is what it is. Rachel Ellering's, I don't know if she's under contract. I think she may just be somebody that they've brought in for the purposes of the Deadly Draw, and they're like, hey, while you're here, let's get a match on Dark, so that we're using, while you are here, we are using you to the utmost capacity that we can, and you're getting paid as much as you can while you're here. Which, I mean, if you're a talent and work is always hard to come by, no matter what happens, especially in independent wrestling. It can be difficult sometimes to find bookings, and especially now, hey, take the match, right? After this, we have Butcher and Blade versus SCU, and this is the SCU pairing of Chris Daniels, CD, and Frankie Kazarian, because Scorpio is going on that little singles run. He's going to be challenging Cody for the TNT title. Won't back down. So we're seeing CD pairing up with Kazarian more for tag matches. This was the other match that threw me, because as the match was going on, I'm just like, wow. So Butcher and Blade are kind of losing matches repeatedly. I'm not expecting them to win, and on top of that, CD and Kazarian. SCU's always been booked pretty strongly in AEW. So to see Butcher and Blade pick up the win, a main event win on Dark, brought a tear to my eye. I liked that they were doing that, and it kind of flips in comparison when you look at the flip of why did Natural Nightmares win over Hybrid 2. It's an older talent with a younger talent. Not to say Kazarian is that much younger than CD, but Kazarian still has much higher of a career potential in AEW than CD does. CD is more of a behind-the-scenes guy these days. And so I'm wondering why Natural Nightmares pick up the win, because Kazarian is by far not a jobber, or not even close to being somebody who you'd consider a jobber, whereas QT Marshall, that's probably what we think of when we think of a jobber, or the concept of a jobber within AEW. So that felt kind of weird that the Hybrid 2 coming back, they don't pick up the win, but then Butcher and Blade do, and they've just been taking losses after losses. It seemed kind of weird. But that was AEW Dark. And now we're going to turn to Impact. This was a pretty good episode of Impact, I gotta say. They move storylines along. We're building towards Impact Wrestling Emergence, which is going to be not a pay-per-view, but a pay-per-view style show that's going to go over 2 weeks. We're seeing this 2-week kind of spectacular trend happening when it comes to wrestling shows. AEW did it with Fyter Fest. They did it with Fyter Fest. NXT did a bit of a copy job, Xerox, if you will, with the Great American Bash to kind of counter program. And now Impact saying, well, now that you guys have gotten that all out of your system, little butting heads back and forth, we're going to do Impact Emergence to show that we are continuing to build and get better and better. And that's all we can really ask from any of the wrestling companies or promotions that we watch. So let's talk about how they're building this Impact Emergence 2-week card. It's gonna be pretty big. So we start off with Eric Young and Willie Mack just hammering at each other after a recap of what happened to Rich Swann. Willie Mack, Rich Swann's friend, had to watch as Eric Young did everything that he's done to Rich Swann, ending his career as far as we are aware. He's not willing to sit for that. They're supposed to have a match tonight. Willie Mack doesn't want to wait. Once they get into the ring, good match, but Eric Young does pick up that win. I think it was probably the match of the night to me. That or I'd say maybe the main event. The matches themselves were just what they needed to be throughout the course of this episode. But Eric Young and Willie Mack put on a pretty darn good match, I will say. Eric Young hitting that power driver, that spike power driver, really good. Eric Young is got a date with destiny when it comes to Eddie Edwards, and that's going to be a match that we can look forward to. Maybe that'll be Emergence. Maybe that'll be the match at Emergence. We'll maybe find out about something about that a little bit later. But moving onwards, we move to Wrestle House, and back at Wrestle House, we are getting more information about the relationship, or shall we say lack thereof, a relationship between Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary. They're continuing to build upon the previous storylines last week of everything that's going on back and forth between the two of them. And from here, we see that maybe there's going to be something boiling over. Maybe Rosemary's going to use some dark powers. Who knows? Who knows what could happen in the Wrestle House? It's an interesting twist on the concept of a Big Brother reality show kind of thing, in that nobody's getting voted out or anything like that. But it's just an interesting kind of quirky way to present it. You have Rosemary, who has these powers, has the ability to do these sorts, anything really that she kind of wants, but she won't let anybody leave until Bravo gets the point. You have, why is the name escaping me? Tommy Dreamer, that's it. Tommy Dreamer yelling out "Match Time," which is now a shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees. You have Tommy, I don't even know what exactly, it's his house, but we don't have any explanation as to why Rosemary was able to transport people into his house, why he's okay with anybody being in his house in the first place. What is going on with that? I need to know in advance if anybody's staying with me, even if it's for a couple days. Trust me, ask my parents. If they want to come visit me here, my parents live in Florida. Nobody's flying over here unless I know about it. So why is Tommy Dreamer just suddenly okay with Rosemary using dark powers to transport half the Impact roster into this investment property that he owns? I don't know, but for starters, that's a great thing to talk about. Everybody look for investment properties, look for ways to build your assets and to create generational wealth and generational income. That's what we're all about in life, or we should be in life. Anyway, that's a different topic. Speaking of somebody who's trying to build for the future, that was a good transition. That one was a good transition. Speaking of somebody who's trying to build for the future, we go back to the Impact Zone and we see Jordynne Grace versus Kimber Lee. Jordynne Grace, we know, is somebody who is trying to cash in her rematch clause. Kimber Lee went to our Knockouts champion and said, "Hey, Deonna Purrazzo, if I can take out Jordynne Grace and then she can't use her rematch clause, you need to give me a title shot." And the Virtuosa said, all right. So Kimber Lee is trying to build towards the future, build towards her future, and say, let me try to get a Knockouts title shot. But she's got to try to get through Jordynne Grace first. And, bless her heart for thinking that she could. And bless her heart for trying. But Jordynne Grace will not be stopped. Jordynne Grace is coming for the Virtuosa, and it looks as though after she picks up the win against Kimber Lee, we are going to be getting that match, that rematch, during one of the two nights of Impact Emergence. I think it's going to be on the second night, so not next week, but the week after that. And good match, really good match here. Kimber Lee takes nothing, loses nothing in the loss, and I will say that she's not the focus of the storyline, and they gave her a good enough opportunity to put up a fight against Jordynne that it doesn't feel bad that she is taking the loss. She took Jordynne Grace to the limit, and so that means to say maybe she could have taken Deonna Purrazzo to the limit if she had gotten that title match. That whets the appetite. You gotta whet the appetite, right? For what could happen down the road with Kimber Lee in a title match for the Knockouts Championship. Speaking of the Knockouts Championship, we go to Locker Room Talk, and this Locker Room Talk is a former Knockouts champion, 5-time if I remember right, she's said it many times, Madison Rayne, one of our commentators normally, having Locker Room Talk with RVD and Katie Forbes. Now, I will say it was kind of funny. they had she said somebody bought commercial time, and it was Heath, and Heath is doing Heath for Impact, hashtag Heath, the number 4, Impact, and he's got it on a shirt now as well on Pro Wrestling Tees. It's just a cool way to kind of continue and the story that Heath isn't part of Impact, but probably is. But maybe he is just really a free agent. They brought him in just for these TV tapings. Who knows? Who knows? Will there be something later that says maybe Heath's services or will be needed to help out a friend? I don't know, but we'll get there. The answer is yes. But RVD and Katie Forbes kind of disgust Madison Rayne with their PDA, which I think is hilarious, because part of the running joke on commentary is that Madison Rayne is married, but she's not married to anybody that we know of, despite the fact that it's Josh Matthews, and they kind of act as though they're not married, which I think is kind of hilarious. So the PDA from RVD and Katie Forbes kind of just gets her out of the room. Out of nowhere, ICU Sami Callihan shows up, and you think it's going to be a nice chance for Sami to get the drop on RVD to get payback for what happened last week, but it's not, actually. RVD and Katie Forbes are able to turn it around and beat up on Sami. So that's how that locker room talk ends. I kind of like the twist. Normally you'd expect Sami to get the payback, but now Sami has even more reason to continue to fight against RVD. And one thing that's kind of interesting about it is they're doing all of this, and it's a way to keep RVD in storylines, but he's not in the ring, which I think is kind of cool, because RVD is, much like Shamrock, slowing down, and he's somebody who they probably shouldn't be putting out in the ring as much anymore. After this, we have a backstage segment with the Rascals where they are talking, and Trey shows up wearing the Suicide mask, and Moose comes up out of nowhere and says, "Hey, Suicide, you're getting a shot next week at Emergence for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship." And he gives an invitation to Suicide. But it's actually Trey wearing the Suicide mask. And Moose, apparently, because he's delusional and thinks that he actually is the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, thought that he was giving the invitation to Suicide. Seems weird. Well, I'll buy it. I'll buy it because it means we're getting Trey Miguel next week versus Moose for that title, and I think that's a good match. Especially like on paper, it's a great match. You have a big guy in Moose, you have a small, agile guy in Trey. That's usually a big recipe for success. And I will say, if you haven't already, watch Warrior Wrestling on Fight TV, the pay-per-view that was sponsored by the True Heels. At that event that I and my girlfriend were at. Either way it's past tense, but it's definitely plural. There was 2 of us there, where she got to meet Kylie Ray, which was great for her, and Brian Cage as well, and Madman Fulton. Not Madman Fulton. Why am I saying Madman Fulton? Lance Archer. Confusing the two. Gosh, Lance would beat the crap out of me for that. But at that event, we had a 6-man tag match involving the Rascals, and just incredible, phenomenal work from them. So I know that Trey Miguel is going to have a stellar match with Moose. That's already, in my mind, a top contender for match of the night for Impact's first day of the Emergence 2-week event. After this, we're back at Wrestle House, where we have Rosemary deciding to find a way to make Johnny Bravo jealous. And what that means is using her magic. Ooh, that was a good snap, wasn't it? On Larry D. And of Triple XL, and he and AC Romero get into it because Larry is more concerned with Rosemary as opposed to eating popcorn. Also, Taya is making everybody watch Taya's debut, which I had to refresh my memory. It came at the expense of Rosemary, so that's a reason why Rosemary is now deciding to say, "Hey, screw it, let's make Taya Valkyrie jealous." So we get a match between AC and Larry D. Larry D picks up the win. It's just another Wrestle House segment, another Wrestle House match. And I think it's kind of cool in the sense that they came up with this concept just to make sure that while they were doing these tapings, people were able to be socially distanced. If you think about it, that's the real reason why this is happening. And I think that's really an interesting idea and way to do it. As opposed to WWE doing the cinematic matches, that part of it's just like, all right, whatever, but it's just one match, or maybe 2 matches. Whereas this is, we're literally going to cut our roster in half and push each them into different areas, and they can do things separately, but that we're going to be able to combine for the show. I think that's great because they're doing it on a week-in, week-out basis, whereas WWE is only doing it for one night only. No pun intended for the old Impact pay-per-view series, one night only. But after this, we have Knockouts division matches, and this is a no disqualification match between Kiera Hogan, Tasha Steelz teaming up against Nevaeh and Jessica Havoc. This pretty good match. The weapons were used properly the way they should in a no disqualification match. The right people won. I think that Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan winning is good because it's building them as heels, and if they're able to get over somebody when they have a huge discrepancy in size and strength advantage against, which is more important in this situation, strength advantage up against Nevaeh and Havoc, they've continued to get the better of them, and then when you add in weapons that are able to equalize the playing field, they definitely pick up the win. It's now adding them as potential contenders down the road should a certain person who's just always happy to be there is even more happy if she became the Knockouts champion. You have a great face in Kylie Ray building up heels. And I don't think that Deonna Purrazzo is or should be a transitional champion. I'm just saying that if they do go that route, or just in general, it's great to build people up. So even if Kylie Ray falls short, she can start a program with Kiera Hogan shortly thereafter. And if she wins, she can start a program with Kiera Hogan shortly thereafter. Either way, it works. After this, we have the Good Brothers talking to Scott D'Amore, and they say, hey, we are interested in facing Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, but apparently they're not in the building. So the Good Brothers say, you know what, we're going to go to the ring and we're going to hijack this show until they come here. Or no, Scott D'Amore doesn't think they're in the building. He's not sure. So they go to the ring. The match that was happening was Dez versus Suicide, which just in and of itself seems kind of weird. Suicide got his mask back from Trey. Trey threw the mask at Dez, so maybe Suicide came and was like, hey, that's my mask, and we need to go have a match because you stole my mask. There was no kind of idea behind it, but at the same time, it's kind of cool that there was no idea behind it. They just were able to say, hey, this is a match that was going to be happening or should be happening, but alas, it is interrupted by the Good Brothers, who cause a disqualification, get on a microphone and say, Ace, Madman Fulton, do you guys know what you're doing? Do you know who you're messing with? Do you understand the pain and the hurt that can be put upon you from putting your nose in business that does not concern you, the Good Brothers? Ace Austin and Madman Fulton say, hey, we're not there. They appear via, I can't say Titantron, can I? Because Titantron is a WWE terminology from the Titan Sports era of WWE. So we'll just say the Tron, the TNA Tron or the Impact Tron. They appear on the Tron and say, hey, we're not there. We really are not there. But we'll give you a match at Emergence. I think that's also night one of Emergence. So Good Brothers versus Ace Austin, Madman Fulton. That's my other potential contender for match of the night if something goes wrong with Trey and Moose. But right now my money's on Trey and Moose for giving us match of the night. The Good Brothers accept. Speaking of Moose, Moose is walking backstage when out of nowhere against the wall. Wall. That's a wall. That's a doorway. That's a wall. Against the wall, we have EC3 popping up out of nowhere and talking to Moose and just continuing that control your narrative promo style, that character, and saying, Moose, it's not personal. I have to do this to you. I have to bring the hurt. I have to bring the pain. I have to destroy you in order to rebuild myself. And it's not personal, even though it's super personal. It's nothing against Moose in that sense. It's just personal to EC3. It could be anybody. It just so happens that it's Moose. And that's got Moose shook. So I'm thinking next week it's going to be really physical between Moose and Trey Miguel. It's reinforcing that idea for me that this is going to be a match. And EC3 is going to show up and And he is going to be involved somehow, some way in that segment, whether it's before, during, or after. I think EC3 shows up during that emergence match. So actually, I'm sorry, I put it out of order. The Moose and EC3 happens first, then it's Dez and Suicide with the Good Brothers. And either way, it works. We know what's happening here. We know the matches that we're building towards for Impact Emergence. It's just they're doing a good job of building the show. That the way I have it written in my notes is I'm jumping ahead because Impact's doing building blocks. They're building very well throughout the show, that they're programming it so wonderfully well that I'm thinking this is happening right after. But no, they actually are putting things in between to give you a passage of time, to give you the idea that things are happening backstage while things are happening in the arena. Or the Impact Zone. We don't even know what was going on in the ring while the Good Brothers were on their way to the ring, but we saw instead Moose with EC3, and then by the time the Good Brothers get there, Dez and Suicide are starting their match. So it's just an interesting way to book the show. I like seeing when shows do that because it throws me. Like, case in point, it throws me in my notes. I'm thinking this is happening right afterwards, but no, there is actually passage of time. That's always important in a wrestling show, to kind of give you the idea that you are on a journey and things are happening in real time. That's always super important. Backstage, maybe while this is happening in the ring with the Good Brothers and Ace and Madman Fulton, we have Rohit Raju talking to Chris Bay, talking about how TJP got the submission win over Chris Bay, and he says, you know what? If you have to give TJP a X Division title shot, Fallah Bahh is going to be on the outside, right? And that could hurt you. That could make things difficult for you to retain your title. So what you should do is instead make it a triple threat. With who? Me, of course, Rohit Raju, and we will be able to team up on TJP, and then you can pin him, and you can be the X Division champion. It's a really great attempt to finesse the Finesse Division champion, I gotta say. Chris Bay kind of sees all the way through it. However, the pride of the heel, the ego of the heel, makes him say, you know what? I've already beaten you, Rohit Raju. It's fine. Triple threat. Who cares? You can be in the match. We'll take care of TJP because I don't even need to worry about you backstabbing me. Which, I mean, to be fair, he probably doesn't. But just in general, it kind of works. It doesn't make sense for Chris to agree to this. And that's going to speak to the ego of the heel, because if you make it a triple threat, then Fallah Bahh can automatically get involved. Because normally in triple threats, anything goes, right? But if it was a singles match, then if Fallah Bahh got involved, it would cause a disqualification. Chris Bay retains his title. So it's the ego of the heel to, be like, you know what, we'll do whatever you want, because I know I can beat you, and I'm pretty positive I can beat TJP. I believe I can beat TJP. So after this, we have a final Wrestle House segment for the night, and it deals with Susie and Aaliyah. So in previous Wrestle House segments, Susie was supposed to go on a date with cousin Jake something. He was also part of the Warrior Wrestling show. It was him versus him versus Joey Janela. It was AEW versus Impact kind of match. Pretty good match, I will say. Janela, of course, got the pop that he does, and good match. Again, you guys can always watch it on Fight TV and see what the world was talking about. At least the Chicago world of wrestling really was talking about it, because it was the first live wrestling show since the pandemic started. But here, Jake is trying to put the moves on Susie, which, I don't know, if you know, like, real life backstage, who is married to who or who is dating who, it kind of throws in my mind, it pulls me out of it, because I know Susie's married to Rich Swann, but, whatever the case may be. He's trying to put the moves on her. The date does not go well. Susie followed the advice of Aaliyah. They start getting into it. Tommy Dreamer yells match time. We get a match between Susie and Aaliyah. Susie picks up the win. Nothing really crazy to write home about. And now we have our main event, Eddie Edwards coming out for his title defense. And who is it? Brian Myers. They had been teasing that Brian Myers, formerly known as Kurt Hawkins, would be making his debut. And we didn't know when. We didn't know how exactly it was going to happen. I know Chris G would have been, as I said last week, very happy about Brian Myers' Mets colors. And Brian Myers makes his debut in a world title match against Eddie Edwards. Pretty good match, solid match. The other contender for match of the night, if you're not going to give it to Eric Young and Willie Mack. And Eddie Edwards picks up a solid win over the debuting Brian Myers. I think it's kind of a situation where they used Brian Myers correctly. They gave him the platform of the main event match. At the same time, he takes the loss, but he doesn't lose anything in taking that loss because we can always chalk it up to just how good Eddie Edwards is, and Brian came in a little too hot for his debut. So I think they're going to build towards emergence. This build towards emergence has been really good. I'm interested to see how they fill out the match card for night 2 because I think the majority of what they've done so far is fill out for night 1. I think night 2 is going to have Eddie defending, maybe against Eric Young, and they are going to have the Knockouts title being defended, the Jordan Grace-Deonna Purrazzo match. Maybe we'll get some Wrestle House stuff, I don't know, on night 1 that will set up some stuff for night 2. We shall see. But no matter what happens, whether it's Dark or Impact, just know that we will be covering it here on Dark Power. I did see that there's news about the NWA coming back for a weekly pay-per-view series. I think that's going to be on Tuesdays as well. So stay tuned for that, guys. I think we will try to figure out how I will be covering that. I'm not 100% sure what the situation will be there. Definitely may need to rebrand the name of this show because there is no more Powerrr. So it was. Maybe that's just on hold until NWA can knock out more, I don't know, TV taping time, whatever the case may be at those. I think because it was a Thunder Studios in Georgia. So we'll see what happens. But whatever does happen, guys, just know that I will be with you every step of the way, whether you're an AEW fan, whether you're an NWA fan, whether you are an Impact fan. We are here for you. So, guys, remember, before I let you go, I meant to say in the beginning, but like, comment, subscribe, share. We appreciate it whenever you guys do it. We appreciate all the love, all the support. I know Sid and Romeo recently had a video about a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. So make sure you guys check up on that, read all the, see what we're doing, and see how you guys can be part of this giveaway. So until next time, guys, I'll catch you later, and thanks for watching.